Member Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and it's a pleasure to rise and speak on the Electoral Amendment Bill. And want to note, and I think largely with what the Minister said by way of principle when considering legislation covering our electoral laws, and that is to note not only are they of course vital to the operation of our democracy, but we should note that as current MPs we are merely the custodian of those rules and of the law. And therefore it's vital that when we are considering the electoral laws and the laws governing people's right to vote and participate in our democracy, that we proceed in a suitably sober and measured way. And so we don't see big lurches in our electoral law, and that significant changes are subject to widespread public debate and to referenda and other measures as necessary. And we do that because this is a vital constitutional area. Any changes, as I said, Mr Speaker, should avoid unnecessary controversy, and it's true that there have been controversial changes made to our electoral laws in the past. But above all, they should ensure that measures enhance and promote voting and participation in the democratic process. And so we come at these proposed changes with that in mind, as indeed the Select Committee did. And, Mr Speaker, as the Minister noted, by and large, that is the approach, the consensus approach that the committee takes. And so, Mr Speaker, we welcome the bill and we will support it, with the exception of one very vital aspect which I will come to. As the Minister said, these are mostly sensible changes. They follow the scheduled and usual review by the Select Committee of the most recent general election. The Select Committee did that and came up with their recommendations. It is good especially to see the abandonment of the original provision, or at least of the provision in the original bill, which would mean that the use of ribbons and rosettes in everywhere but voting booths would be banned. And so it means that those who are undertaking their party activities and interacting with voters, they will be able to wear the colour of their party so that voters know that they are on official election business on that day, even though they are volunteers. That's a very important part of identifying that there are people who have duties to perform on election day to support their party. It is not overt, it is not at least over the top display of colours. It is a subtle reminder that there are people who are out there doing what comes naturally on election day, and that is parties seeking to maximise their vote. The original attempt to ban that in the original bill was, of course, a very petty action, but it hasn't survived the Select Committee process, and that is a good thing. It is also a good thing, Mr Speaker, that the rules about the disclosure of contributions, particularly those contributions made by way of loans to political parties, have been clarified, and that is an important measure. An uncontroversial measure. It makes no sense to allow political parties to take advantage of a loan, whether in an election year or at any other time, and that not to be disclosed, when in fact significant benefit is obtained from that assistance, at least with cash flow at the time. Of course, it does raise the question about when we are going to pass a law. That would mean there'd be greater transparency on devices such as the Waitemata Trust, for example, which has a very significant role to play, albeit on the part of the National Party and no other political party. But maybe that will come in another day. But, Mr Speaker, the aspect of this bill that is more disturbing, and that has, even though it's been through the Select Committee process and all, even though largely consensus has been achieved, and that is the removal from the original bill of those provisions that would have enhanced and expanded the use of the Easy Vote card. And I think, Mr Speaker, that change is a little more sinister. As I said before, Mr Speaker, one of the objectives of changes that we make to our electoral law, every time we make them, should be to enhance democracy, should be to assist voters and to assist citizens to participate in their democracy, and none more so than in a general election when the issue of who is government is very much at stake. And the Easy Vote card did this. The Easy Vote card has played a very good role in the last few elections and has enabled people to get confirmation that they are enrolled, to provide the details in an easy form that they can take into their voting booth and take it to the returning officer there or the clerk, and who can then very easily find their name on the roll, on the page and the line number, and they can be their name can be struck out. They can be given their ballot papers. It was a very quick and efficient way of doing it, because the truth is that there are some voters for whom turning up to the voting booth, particularly if they have a difficult name, particularly if English is a second language to them, particularly if they have a thick accent. Not every citizen is like Chris Okenvold, who has managed to expunge his deep-seated Glaswegian accent so that he is more or less understandable on most times that he speaks in the House. Many voters, people entitled to vote, are not able to change the accent with which they speak, and often turning up to a returning officer and having to say their name can cause confusion, can cause difficulty for both. For those who have speech impediments, then the Easy Vote card was a very easy way for them to cast their vote. The removal of it is a retrograde step, but of course it's not just the removal of the Easy Vote card. If we compare the language of the existing Electoral Act and section 167, subsection 2, and it just simply says, the elector must give any particulars that are necessary for finding the elector's name on the rolls. That is a very broad provision, and it allowed for the Easy Vote card. And the question then has to be asked, why in clause 24 of the bill that amends section 167, subsection 2 of the Act, does it now say this? It says an elector who applies to vote must verbally give or verbally confirm his or her name, and B, give or confirm any other particulars that may be necessary to find the elector's name on the rolls. And that is as against also other provisions that have been deleted from the original bill that allow use of the Easy Vote card. The fact that the bill now expressly says that a voter must provide verbal confirmation of who they are is a retrograde step. And Mr. Speaker, we do this as against a background knowing that this is the 50th anniversary of the passage of the citizens' rights legislation in the United States, where states are required to avoid measures that are an obstacle to casting a vote in their election processes. They are meant to avoid provisions that demand identification and various particular hoops that voters have to go through. This takes us very close, or certainly down that path that requires voters to go through various hoops, unnecessary hoops, I might add, in light of the success of the Easy Vote card in previous elections when it comes to casting their vote. So, Mr. Speaker, I am foreshadowing that we will be proposing some amendments by way of supplementary order papers to deal with that provision, because that seems to be an unnecessary part of this bill. A bill that provides many sensible changes, that otherwise has the support of this House, that otherwise has achieved consensus. That is a retrograde measure. And we look at it askance, we look at it very seriously, and I would hope perhaps through some sober debate and mature debate, even at this stage in the House, we can achieve agreement on that so that we have, and we can demonstrate and boast to the rest of the world, we have a model way of developing our electoral laws and citizens' electoral rights so that they are not disadvantaged when it comes to participating in this great democracy.
I call the honourable